States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Call to order. Roll call.
Okay, Nori Nelson,
Here.
John Samsel,
Here.
Kelly Lee,
Here.
Charlene Robinson,
Present.
Tom Beresny,
Here.
Frank Santa Cruz,
Here.
Dave Gerber,
Here.
John Bernal, here, Frank Fry,
Frank's usually here.
Bill Schlesinger,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Thank you.
If I may just give a quick
Yep.
reminder, make sure if you're going to speak on the mic, make sure you speak clearly and into the mic, don't have it too far from you. Make sure that your recording device and those listening via WebEx are able to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Moving on to the approval of meeting summary of September 24th. Give you a few minutes.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to the bylaw modifications. So we discussed last month about whether we should have continue to have these meetings monthly or bi-monthly. So on page 2, down at the bottom, this would be the change to the bylaws if we approve going to bi-monthly. So, does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the bylaws as amended so we can have bi-monthly meetings. Second.
Anybody else, anything else from you? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great. Moving on to the road repair update.
What are we going to do with all that extra time? Make you a long walk here in shade.
Just working off lunch, that's all. All right. Is that fine, Gilbert? Okay. Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We are happy to present this month's update for our pavement preservation and road repair program. So getting started off here, we have 3 substantially complete projects on the list now. So the list is starting to grow from where we were at last month. So that Pima Mine Ocotillo Ranch Road project, that was there for last month, but we have added in now the Green Valley Surface Treatment Project as well as the Moore Road Pulverization and Pave Project. Both those are substantially complete. They're still going through their final cleanup and final punch list, so that's expected to be another couple weeks of that final project closeout, but all major construction activities are complete on those 2 jobs. Ongoing projects, we do have a few ongoing right now. The Sonoran Ranch Camino Verde Estates curb ramp project is moving along fairly quickly. All the ramps in the Camino Verde Estates subdivision are complete, and they're getting ready to move into the Sonoran Ranch subdivision here next week. So that project is about halfway done, continuing to move forward, probably looking at completion of that job by the end of December, potentially a little bit before that even. The Ajo Surface Treatment Project also going along pretty well, pretty quickly at this point. They're in the middle of their Cape Seal work right now, with their fog seal work getting ready to kick off probably mid-November. We're probably about a month and a half away from that job hitting substantial completion as well. But that job is moving along quite well as we speak. And then the Riverside Crossing curb ramp and mill and pave project, that last one there, that job is also going on now. They're currently working on their curb ramp work as we speak, potentially finishing that curb ramp work as early as next week. And then paving work is going to follow that probably mid-November to early December timeframe for all the paving activities, including utility adjustments and all the fun stuff accompanying that. You'll notice I skipped the Community of the West to Sunset project because we're going to talk about it now. So that project, even though it's on the ongoing list, that job has been slightly shifted, so it's now going to tentatively start in early December due to contractor schedule. But it is going to be a quick-moving project. So once they get going in early, mid-December, it'll be wrapped up by the end of the calendar year. So probably less than a month total on this project. And that was awarded to Granite Construction for just over $1 million. Some more awarded projects to talk about: the Vail Coronde Tucson surface treatment. I know we've talked a little bit about this before. This is all crack seal and fog seal on this project. Awarded to Sunland Asphalt. Right now, tentatively looking at getting started with this project late November, early December timeframe. Essentially, it'll follow after the Ajo project for that contractor. So as long as there's no issues out in Ajo with schedule, this project should start pretty much early December with the crack seal work. That is what we're anticipating now. And then following after that project, Sunland is going to be working on this one, the industrial region surface treatment. This is also all crack seal and fog seal. Looking at starting this tentatively in early January of 2025. And this was awarded for $416,000. So moving into some other projects, the Tanque Verde Valley Mill and Pave project. This is has been awarded to Borderland Construction, and not just awarded, but they wanted to start very quick. So this is now in construction as of yesterday. So they're currently up there working on some kind of preparatory items on Snyder Road at Melpomene, and then paving, milling and paving work we're anticipating next week, really getting going with this project. Probably having the whole job in substantial completion in the early part of December is what we're looking at for this job. Engineer's estimate was $1.3 to $1.4 million. Low bid was $1.285. There's about just shy of 4.5 miles of local roads on this project up on the northeast side of the metro area. And kind of as I hinted, they'll more than beat the completion date of 3/31/25 as well. Some other projects. So this is our Jupiter Estates Rancho Escondido ADA and pave project. If you'll remember a couple months ago, we talked about with that Rancho Escondido project that was the first combo curb ramp and paving job, and then depending on how that one went, we would have a second. Well, this is the second one, and so this is currently out for advertisement right now. Engineer's estimate is $1.7 to $1.9 million. There's 30 ADA curb access ramps and just shy of 3 miles of local road paving on this project, with a completion date of the 15th of April of 2025. It says bid opening of 10:30 there. That has been adjusted. Bid opening is now going to be the 5th of November, so as not to compete with a City of Tucson project that's also opening on the 30th. So a little bit of coordination there between the agencies to make sure that we're not overwhelming the contracting community. So again, that 10:30 is now 11/5. That's the new date on that. Additional project out for bid currently is our Foothills Area Surface Treatment Project. This is our largest surface treatment project for the fiscal year, mostly crack and fog seal with some thin overlay as well. The engineer's estimate is $2.1 to $2.4 million on this. Bid opening is on the 31st, so that bid is staying there. So it is on bid opening on Halloween. There's 6.34 miles of local road and 29.05 miles of arterial collector surface treatment on this project. with a completion date of the 20th of June. So that gets it right in there before the end of our fiscal year. And then one last project to talk about, our Avra Valley area pulverized / mill and pave. So this is our big hard bid project for the fiscal year. It is currently in package prep, but it is advertising tomorrow. So procurement is releasing this out tomorrow to advertise. Looking at a bid opening probably in early December for this job. Engineers' estimate is between $3.5 to $4 million. And then the big road on this one is Silverbell Road. So this project will be following after our Blanco Wash Bridge capital improvement project that's ongoing currently. So it'll slide in right nicely after that project wraps up. There's 3.46 miles of local road milling and paving, and then 7.19 miles of arterial collector road repair on this project, with a completion date of the 20th of June for that. So that was a lot of projects. So as you can imagine, the pie chart's looking a little more colorful at this point in the year. You can see that we have a slice of that light blue there, that's the complete column. The orange in construction, we have some that's in the awarded column, with some of that awarded actually having shifted over to in construction here in the last couple days. The advertised as well should be growing here fairly substantially, with that hard bid getting advertised in the next couple days. And then still a few projects left in the preparation stage, getting ready to probably advertise in the next several months, especially our surface treatment projects. They'll all be advertised out here in the next couple months before for the end of the calendar year. With that, you can view the status of all the roads. There should be a lot of colors changing on this map here shortly as things really start getting ramped into construction. But this will be where you can view all that, all the status of all those roads selected for this fiscal year and past fiscal years. And with that, I will open to any questions.
Madam Chair. One question, Jason, on the
Yeah.
foothills area, which district, does that go between 1 and 4, or just in 1, or what?
It is between 1, 4, and then there's a tiny bit of District 3, which is on Dodge Boulevard. But it's primarily 1 and 4.
I had one question as well. Just kind of curious on a broad level, it seems like maybe we're seeing inflation pressures ease a bit. What are you seeing in terms of the bids? Like, I know that they look good in relation to the estimates, but like on a unit price level, are you still seeing price increases? Does it look pretty stable lately?
Yeah, so great question. As compared to last year, we're stable from where we were, with a slight easing, but some of the prices that we're seeing have been just contractors really wanting a specific job. So they might really want something to fill in a window in their schedule. And so it's hard to say at this point how much of kind of the cost leveling and a slight decrease is due to the overall just conditions of the economy versus just individual contractors really wanting a job at a certain time. So not a great answer, not
No,
not
that
full
was
answer,
very
but-
informative, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John?
Madam Chair, Jason, thanks. Question about the combo project. Did you say this was like the second one, the only second?
Correct, yeah.
And can you just tell us what convinced you that it was a good concept to move forward with?
Yeah, so based off of the first project we have that was a combo project is currently ongoing right now. And one of the big things that prompted us to do that first one even was we had a lot of contractors coming to us and saying, hey, we would like to have full control over the whole neighborhood. It'll fit really well in our schedule. We won't have to bid on 2 separate jobs. One of the hesitations with that is, can we get it under our jock limit? And so this year we were able to start kind of playing around and see, are we going to get numbers that reflect that savings that we were being told by the contracting community would come if a contractor had full control over a whole neighborhood and can kind of schedule all the work in that neighborhood themselves without having to wait on another contractor to finish. And so far, with that one project, we did see a little bit of savings based on what it would have been if we had 2 engineer estimates for 2 different projects versus 1. So we saw that. Obviously, 1 is a very small sample size, so we'll see with the second one whether that trend continues going forward a couple years and potentially have enough of these projects going forward in the next couple years. Another big reason is just we had less ADA curb ramps that we had to do this fiscal year as compared to past years. I think total we had about 100 ramps total this year, just over 100 compared to past years where we're doing 300, 400, 500 ramps. So it just lended itself nicer to not having a giant curb ramp package here or there. We did have one package that was just curb ramps, but having fewer neighborhoods that needed those ramps this year and being more isolated, it lent itself a lot nicer to trying to combine it in to realize those cost savings. And so far, we think that's what we're seeing. But again, very small sample size to this point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
RTA next, Director Skinner.
Good afternoon, committee and Madam Chair. I'm Catherine Skinner, the Director of Transportation, with an exciting update on RTA Next. And I say exciting because on September 26th, which was the last RTA board meeting, that board did decide to take the current RTA Next plan to the public for the public outreach, input, feedback period. It does not mean that this plan is what we will see on the ballot, but it is a big milestone in the development, which has been going on for many years. So how did we get there, and what does that plan look like? If you recall, at our last meeting, I discussed that there had been a special meeting of the RTA board on September 5th, where they really got into details and nailed down what they felt the plan would look like. So from that last update that I gave you until today, there's been very little changes to the plan. The items that were discussed on the 26th are the following. First, there are a series of projects which were called modernization projects, which had been listed within the safety, ADA, and active transportation category. Because those projects had specific roadway limits, instead of leaving them in the category that's somewhat meant to be more flexible or related to active transportation, these were going to be more full-scale roadway modernization. Those projects and the associated budget were moved into the named roadway category. So that was the first change. The second is that there's a category that has been added for arterial reconstruction. Right now there's one project listed in that category, and that's Golf Links Road from Wilmot to Houghton. If you recall, this is one of the categories that is very important to the city of Tucson, and it is expected that should revenues come in higher than the pessimistic forecast, which is what the board had approved to plan towards, but there's a sense that it'll come in higher than this pessimistic. Some of that money will go into the arterial reconstruction, and additional roads will be added. The next change is that there were some slight modifications to how the transit descriptions were listed. It did not result in a change in the total amount of funding to the transit category, just how they were aligned, the description with the sponsor agency. Another big conversation before they got to the vote was regarding, again, what is that baseline surplus amount, which that is the amount above the pessimistic estimate. There's hundreds of millions of dollars. They're trying to decide what would we do with that, because there's a good chance that'll come in. And the majority of that portion does go to the city of Tucson. However, The two items that are kind of first on the list are filling the contingency bucket, if you will. Right now in the base plan, there's only $25 million of contingency. There would be another $75 million added. And secondly, the wildlife linkages element, which had been at about $50 million at the September 5th meeting, that had been reduced to $25 million in the pessimistic plan, but an additional $25 million would be added from the baseline surplus. So there was a lot of discussion as what will be the mechanism by which these funds are added into the named plan if RTA Next does pass the public. No final decisions were made, but those are items that will be clarified within the administrative code of the RTA Next plan, which is just being drafted as we speak, but that would have to be completed prior to the vote by the public. So a little bit yet to be decided on that front in terms of what the actual process is there. So the RTA board did take a vote, as I said, to move this forward to public input. It passed 5-2 with the mayors of Marana and Oro Valley voting against going to the public with this plan. An area of conversation, continued conversation, is that topic of contingency, because we know that in RTA 1 there have been a lot of challenges with having adequate funding to complete these projects. When it goes to public outreach, this was another topic of discussion by the RTA board. What would public outreach look like? And one decision was made, and that was that we would the RTA would bring in an outside consultant that will help with these outreach efforts to those hard-to-reach populations and try to ensure that we get representative feedback from the entire Pima County community that would be voting on and affected by this plan. Another item that has more directly, before we've been saying, is it going to be a spring 2025 election or some other date? The board did determine that a November 2025 election is really the soonest that they could go to the voters and have an adequate period of public input. So that's another new date to put on the calendar for the RTA Next plan. And that is really where it stands right now. I've not seen any outreach, any of the publicity pamphlets or anything go out as of yet. They're still working on what that will really look like for the public outreach, but please keep your eyes open as I anticipate that to come out in the coming months. So I don't know if Mr. Bernal has anything to say from the TMC perspective, or if there's questions.
Well, it's interesting you use the word TMC, because that is my report. The message that I think has come back to the technical management committee members is that the board feels that we've provided adequate input, as has the citizen advisory committee. So our roles are essentially done for the moment. Presumably we may be brought back in after the public feedback and see how that changes the plan, but there's no guarantee of that. So that's about all we know.
Madam Chair. Hey, Catherine, so if they have a November 2025 election, let's just hypothetically say it gets approved, so does the 26 to 46 plan, when would it start? I mean, when would the actual work begin? And then how are the projects lined up? Based on revenue generated over the 20-year period, and then we pick the next one off the list, or what?
So that's a great question. So to the first point of when does it cut over to the new plan, that's set in statute. And so I believe it's, now that I'm thinking, in April or May timeframe of 2026 is when it would come in. And so the existing RTA 1 would stop collecting on that date, and you'd go straight to the next RTA Next plan. It's the same half-cent sales tax. So, from the public's perspective, there has been no change there, but there would be a couple of months of revenue from RTA 1 that you're not collecting, essentially, that would have gone to RTA 1 projects. So that has been part of what has been built into the RTA Next plan is to compensate for those few months of missing revenue. In terms of phasing of projects in RTA Next, there have been some initial efforts and requests went out to the various jurisdictions in terms of what our preferences were or are for our different projects. This was used primarily to look at the cash flow and debt service requirements for an RTA Next and how much money should be put into the plan for bonding. I think my guess is there's still probably some fine tuning. If in history as our guide, RTA 1 has always included in their pamphlets that they put out, a kind of a landscape form of each phase, each project by the 4 periods of the RTA. I would anticipate we'll see something similar, but they have gotten the initial feedback from all the jurisdictions so they could do some cash flows.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think the only one thing to add to that that's important is the first priority, of course, is going to be any carryover projects from RTA 1. Those, the board has said that repeatedly. We've got to finish what was in the first plan, so. And then whatever happens after that.
That is a very good clarification, and there's 4 carryover projects, so, which will be a significant investment. It's over $200 million for just those 4 projects.
Madam Chair, a question. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to read the article on RTA and the Arizona Star today, and if you did, if you had any comments, because it elaborates a little bit more on Oro Valley and Marana as to their concerns and the city of Tucson mayor's comments.
I have not read that as of yet, so I'll have something on my reading list for after work today.
There's also one in the Independent you ought to read.
And there was one in the Sentinel Net last week, so.
Any other questions for?
I had a quick question. You talked a little bit about the public feedback process. If that generates, I guess what you'd call maybe substantial difference between what the plan shows versus what you're seeing from public feedback, what generally is the process to reconcile that?
I wasn't here when they went through this process the last time, so I can't really speak from how it was handled previously. The RTA board has been pretty clear about wanting to see what that feedback is directly, and I would say raw feedback as opposed to something that's already kind of been culled and looked at by staff. And so I think we have to play it out with what comes in and how significant. I would also presume it might be an opportunity to how CAC be molded TMC to do the initial look at part plan. That is really
Thanks.
on my part.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Director Skinner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 7, open discussion of meetings with Board of Supervisors and committee members. So Ed and I met with District 2 Met Hines staff members, and I will let Ed give a briefing on that.
Well, we had a lot of interesting questions and a fair amount of dialogue. We were there for a little while. I'd say the bottom line is kind of a view that sales tax, which whether it goes to RTA or whatever, comment was, well, it is regressive, and it is a regressive tax. But there was substantial interest in the vehicle license tax, to the point where they said they were going to ask the finance staff to come up with an estimate of what it would take to make up the difference of what's going into the general fund now, which is almost $35 million versus $19 million for road improvements. What percent, it might be 1/4%, who knows, 1/10% would it take to shave all the way across to fill that bucket for transportation? I thought that was pretty insightful myself. So there's some contemplating as to where potentially an earmark source could come from at least. So I found that to be a positive response. And Frank and I reported earlier on Adelita Grajava's response. She kind of saw where the committee was coming from in terms of sales tax, as well as potentially offsetting some of the staffing costs through the vehicle license tax or some other means out of the general fund. So that's what we know from those two supervisors.
Okay, does anyone have any other? John?
Madam Chair, when I looked at the agenda and I realized that we were going to be reminded about continuing to pursue some interaction with board members, I sent off an email to the county administrator from myself, but I included the other two county administrative appointees, Bill and Frank, and requesting an opportunity to discuss the paper that we produced. And I'm still waiting to hear back, so we're at least inquiring at this point.
Madam Chair, I met with Supervisor Scott for District 1, and there were no outstanding issues that we meet regularly. There was nothing that came up that was of concern.
Okay. I know, Kelly, we have a meeting scheduled with District 3 on November 7th at noon.
Yes.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I talk to Supervisor Christie on the transportation stuff twice a month. So he's pretty well abreast of what the PTAG does and the overall transportation-related issues outside of the road repair and preservation program that's going on in District 4. So he's up to date.
Okay. And in the District 2 meeting, we did, the concern about possibly getting someone to represent District 2. The concern was from the other person who represented District 2 is that they didn't feel like a lot of this effort applied to District 2. But we're still encouraging them to at least have one rep on the committee. Any other questions, comments, discussions? And again, we encourage you to meet with your supervisor, and then we'll discuss it at the next meeting.
I can't resist. I will date myself. Do you any of you remember the name Sam, District 2, by any chance? He's an old Lakewood, of course, District 2 board member.
Yeah.
He used to always say at budget time, there are no roads in my district, so.
There are. Well, there are south of the airport.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to call to the audience, we have Jean Getz. Is she on? Did you?
She's got bellyache today, she couldn't make it.
Okay, did you want to speak on her behalf?
Not really, I'd like to get about 2 to 5 minutes with Tom, one-to-one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Her message was she wanted to speak on, I think there's the same roads that she has concerns about. Okay. All right, moving to items for discussion. None? Okay. So our next meeting is actually December 10th. We did it. We won't meet in November. We'll meet December 10th. And then I'm assuming that after that, the next meeting will be in February.
Madam Chair, the only question with that is, I know the first part of the year, we're always trying to react to the upcoming list. Does that timing seem to work from the staff perspective?
February, March, May, July.
I really would defer to the committee what you think would work best. I know January is usually when we do the election of the chair, vice chair, if the term is up, and if I'm understanding, we'll at least need a vice chair. So I don't know if that means we'd want to start with a January and then go from there. It would provide likely an extra meeting when we're in the more active part of the year.
Okay, okay. So I will let Tom take the mic for a minute. You want to go ahead and announce that so we can prepare
Oh,
for that?
I guess I could, yeah. The December meeting will be my last meeting. I'm retiring from my daytime job, and I am moving back to Michigan. So, yeah.
Gonna miss you.
Yeah, thank you.
I miss this. You know, I think the one thing I like about this committee is we come from representing, you know, our benefactors, our supervisors from different political perspectives, but the work that's done in this committee, it's really focused on making those roads better again, you know, and so all the turmoil that you see in the world today when it comes to politics, you don't see it in this room. And it's a breath of fresh air. It really is.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Meeting, second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a minute.